Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Joey Colvin. I'm a content marketing manager at mParticle. And on behalf of the team, I'd like to say thanks so much for tuning in to our live customer data platform and Q&A series. This is the second installment of the series. We're really excited to have you here and to walk through the mParticle platform and answer any CDP related questions you may have. Taking the lead today is going to be Justin McManus, Senior Director of Solutions Engineering at mParticle. Before we get underway, just a brief housekeeping items that we'd like to address. If you lose video or audio at any point, please let us know by using the chat feature down at the bottom module. If you have any questions, please share them as they come up using the Q&A feature, also in that bottom module. We will be addressing all the questions together during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And finally, we'd like to share that we will be following up with a recording of the webinar. So if there are any moments of the session that you'd like to revisit or share with a colleague, you will be able to do so. Without further ado, Justin, I'll let you take the lead.
Great. Thank you so much, Joey. And it's a pleasure to meet you all today. And thank you for spending the next chunk of time with us. So what we want to do today is walk you through some of the core components of mParticle's customer data platform. And then we're going to quickly jump into the demo so you can see it in action. And we'll wrap up the session with some Q&A. So to kind of take a step back and think about what are some of the core components of the mParticle CDP, we really break it down into four kind of easy to digest buckets. So the first and foremost is we provide data infrastructure, and we do so in a way to make it incredibly easy for you to connect and ingest all of your first-party customer data, regardless of where it lives. And we have a number of integrations, approximately 300, that come out of the box and make it very easy to seamlessly connect all that data from web, mobile, call centers, backend systems, really anywhere a customer can interact with your brand, and activate those across all the different leading marketing and analytics tools in the ecosystem. We place a tremendous amount of emphasis on ensuring data quality. The idea is once data gets into mParticle, you should have a unified schema that is easily accessible and integrated to all those different tools. And we place that emphasis on really ensuring that your data strategy, when it comes into mParticle, is ready to use and in a format that is easily ready for activation across all those different marketing analytics tools. And we also provide a lot of emphasis on data governance. So really being able to kind of filter and control and adhere to any sort of GDPR or CCPA regulations through your first party data. All that is easily managed in mParticle. And then lastly, we really do also believe that data-driven personalization is what sets brands apart. And so being able to access this data through our real-time profile API to personalize the experience is also a core component of the platform. To look a little bit more holistically, like how you can think about mParticle getting integrated into your stack, the first part is like identifying all the different sources of data where that first party customers interactions can live. We've got about 16 SDKs across all the different platforms, both client side and server side, that make it easy to integrate. But of course, you can also use our events API to send in data through an HTTP request. And then we can also ingest data directly from partner feeds. So being able to ingest attribution data, A/B testing, email campaign events, location services, you name it. Once it gets into our system, we apply our identity resolution capabilities and resolve it underneath a single profile. We issue what's called an mParticle ID, which allows us to resolve all these incoming feeds into a single profile. And then you can choose to activate those raw events or audiences across all the different marketing and analytics tools that you're using today. So let's jump into the UI. As I mentioned, we do place a lot of emphasis on ensuring data quality at time of ingestion. And the very first step in doing an integration or onboarding mParticle is to define your data plan. So here you can come in and you can start to identify all the different requirements as part of your incoming events. So here I have an event called check order status. I have a number of required attributes such as order number and status, but I can also define the data type for each one of those attributes. And what will happen is as you start to integrate mParticle, whether you're using an SDK or you're sending events server side, we have intelligence built into the system to automatically detect and make sure that those incoming events are aligned against your schema definition. So this is performed at the event level, same at the user attributes, as well as identities. And this is what allows you to essentially conform and define all your incoming data points. So once you've gone through the plan definition, the next step is to start sending events into the platform. Here is our live stream. And what our live stream functionality is designed to do is show you all those incoming data points, regardless of which platform. So here I can filter and see we are receiving data from iOS, Android web, from all these feeds from different partners. We have our outputs, our message direction, and these again are all those incoming events. And you can start to see that some of these events have red X's by them, and these are representing different violations that are coming from the data plan that's been defined. So in this particular example, we can see that we are missing a required attribute with this check order status. In this example here, we can see that we are missing a loyalty number as a missing attribute. And if I go back to the plan versions and we look at the user attributes here, you can see that loyalty number is expected as a requirement. Right? And very similarly, if I look at the check order status event here that's been defined, you can see there's a number of requirements here for having an order number as well as a status attribute coming in with every expected event. In this example here, I can see that I now have passed in an event and it has conformed and expected against the data plan itself. So you can see here you have the check order status event, and then we also have our two required attributes of status and order number. So again, we do place a tremendous amount of emphasis here because once the data comes into mParticle, this is essentially the entire ecosystem of data points that are then going to be activated across all your different marketing analytics tools. So if you don't fix the problem at time of ingestion, this could lead to really poor use of data and a lot of challenges and heartaches down the road. So this is our data catalog, and this allows you to zoom out a little bit and look at the entire data model. So you can see all of our custom events, our page views, our e-commerce transactions, all the user attributes, the user identities, the devices that have been collected. And what this allows you to do is get that holistic view of all your incoming events and start to kind of dig in and see the definition of those. So I can click into a particular event such as purchase, and I can see that we've applied a category, some tags. We can have external links to any sort of Jira tickets or other documentation. We can see all the inputs of where we've received this particular event from, and then all the different attributes associated to this event as well. So this allows really the entire organization, whether you're in marketing, in product, and engineering, to examine and see all the data that's been available inside of mParticle. And really now the next step here is to look at all the different partners where you could start to send all this customer data to in real time. The directory allows you to really look and see all those pre-built integrations that we have out of the box. And you can categorize these and click and then apply different filters. You can also look at the different type of configurations. So here we have audience integrations, which allow you to send user lists to all these different platforms. We, of course, support cookie syncs here too. So if you want to do some anonymous targeting on web to different paid media partners, we support that. We have out-of-the-box ETL integrations to all the leading data warehousing tools. And of course, the most typical integration is a raw event. And you can see all those kind of pre-built integrations here. I do want to highlight our feed integrations. This is where you can really start to take in data exhaust from other partners that you're using. So if you're running attribution campaigns, email, push notification, if you have third-party data, these are all examples where we can seamlessly plug into these tools and start to automatically ingest additional customer data for you and automatically resolve those against the right profile. And speaking of profile, you can go to our user activity view here and key in on any sort of identity. And in this example, I have an email address. I'm going to search for Brian Goldman, but I could look at customer IDs, phone numbers, email addresses, any sort of identity types that have been defined in your hierarchy, you can use to search. So I'll pull up this email address. I have a profile here. And we're here now showing you, everything we know about this individual, Brian Goldman. You can see the mParticle ID that was issued, the corresponding customer ID that's set internally, and any sort of other additional user details like a Twitter handle and Facebook ID that's been captured as part of an authenticated login process. We can see the different inputs of where we've seen this user engage. So we've collected data from iOS, from web. We've seen Brian interact on a help desk solution. And we've also done a large batch profile load to begin. We surface all the different devices. And we also have the user attributes listed here. So you can see we have reserved attributes for address, age, city, country, but we also have custom attributes that allow you to completely define and set what type of attributes that you'd like to collect on your users. And these can come client side, but they can also come from your backend. You also see a couple of examples here of what we call as calculated attributes. And this is where a non-technical individual can come into the UI and actually start to build new attributes using some arithmetic functions. And these will be ongoing calculated for you automatically in real time once they're defined. Also below here, you see the audience membership that this user is currently a part of, and all the different consent and compliance purposes that have been collected for both GDPR and California Consumer Privacy Act. These are completely customizable. We recognize that not every business has the same set of purposes. And so you can actually customize these. And we have also integrations into tools like OneTrust to help you really collect that consent. But do know that through our consent API, these are data points that are automatically appended and enriched on the profile and can be used for forwarding rules, which we'll get into here in a moment. So now you have your profile, set up. A logical question that you all might ask is, well, what are some of the settings that you can set to basically resolve these different profiles together? We take a unique and customizable approach to identity. We recognize that not every brand or not every vertical wants to treat users in the same way, especially as it relates to anonymous versus known, and also what happens in various login and logout scenarios. So as part of every engagement and onboarding, we go through an identity scoping session, and we first understand what are all the different identity types that can be collected as part of your journey. We then also set different controls that basically enforce what identities are available upon a login, and also what represents a unique identity. And in very kind of plain English, this means for every single mPID, there can only be one value for customer ID and one value for email address. So once you've got some data in the platform, you've built out your data plans, you've looked at data master, you start seeing profiles being resolved and enriched, and it's meeting your expectations. The next step is to really start managing your airflow of data traffic. So here you can set your different inputs, and these inputs can represent different digital platforms like iOS, Android Web, or Roku, or Xbox, or Alexa, but you can also see this notion of creating custom feeds. The same events API that is used in our client and server-side SDKs are available for you to really build a custom feed to ingest data from anywhere. And that same events API is also what's used to build those productized feeds to ingest data directly from partners. So I can click into a sample input here, such as iOS, and I can see off the bat that we're connected to 21 different outputs here. This represents 21 integrations that your engineering and product team doesn't have to build, manage, or maintain. And every single integration also has their own unique set of requirements. So if we look at something like Google Analytics, which has this notion of custom dimensions, which is very specific to Google, you can actually set those different attributes and map them to those dimensions here in the UI, which further kind of reduces the dependency of having those engineers, those precious resources, spend hours and time ripping open source code and managing those integrations. There's also a number of different type of rules that are available here. So you can apply what we call custom rules. These are essentially AWS Lambda functions that you build in AWS that are used to transform, modify, enrich, drop incoming batches, but those can also be applied on a per partner basis. So very simply put, if you kind of mislabel an event, you want to rename things, if you want to look up and enrich the data from another data source, that's all easily done through invoking an AWS Lambda function. Forwarding rules can also be applied on a per partner basis. So you can choose to forward specific data points based off this logic here. So maybe you only want to forward data to this particular instance of Mixpanel when a particular event attribute is present. Very similar for attribution. If you have your own instance to managing organic versus paid acquisition, you could easily control and filter that here too. And then, compliance is incredibly important in today's context. So you can choose to forward or not forward as long as particular consent has been given for GDPR as well as CCPA. And that also includes the data sale opt-outs that is specific for the California Consumer Privacy Act. We also have a lot of customers who leverage the ability to forward logged in users only. This is really helpful for any sort of cost control. Email tools typically only want logged in users that have an email present. So you can kind of set those different configurations here. Lastly, user sampling is also really beneficial and helpful. So if you are testing new tools and maybe there's a threshold, before you have to start paying some sort of price to using those vendors, user sampling is a great way for you to kind of syndicate out and test different analytics tools or different marketing automation solutions while remaining in sort of a free tier. The next set of activities that one would essentially perform when looking at your governance practice is to understand, what's your flexibility around controlling event volume and specific data points. So here I have the full event library. I have all my particular events and attributes, and I've also listed out a few of these different partners that we're currently sending data to. But what I can do right here, right now, is easily begin to toggle on and off on an entire event level, but also on a particular attribute of which data points I do and I don't want to share with these different partners. Not only does that apply on the event library, but it also applies to user level data too. So if you have sensitive, identities that you don't want to share with partners, if you have account level or workspace level user attributes where you are collecting some sensitive information, you can very easily toggle on and off and implement that control policy here in the UI. Great. So we've walked through, defining a data plan, the intelligence that mParticle can set in to automatically enforce and detect violations. We've looked at the directory of different types of partners that we can start to send data and explore the different types of integrations that we support and how to really control and throttle data across those different partners while really reducing and protecting engineering resources. The next step is to think about how the marketer or the business comes in and starts to activate and build audiences and send those and orchestrate that out to different channels. There's a few different types of audiences that we support. We have this notion of both real-time as well as lifetime. A real-time audience represents a look-back period or essentially a query that's always running, right? Whereas a lifetime audience, we can extend back as far as you've been a customer of mParticle and do like a one-time query over that longer period of time. So the use cases for lifetime might be like understanding what did somebody purchase last holiday season, or was there a specific series of content that was consumed 9 or 12 or 24 months ago, whereas real time might be more used for a suppression use case or understanding cart abandonment. So let's open up an example here and show you exactly what type of flexibility is available when building out these different types of audiences. So I've got an example here where I'm looking at user attributes, specifically understanding what was the average purchase value. We have also a churn risk score that's been brought in by our ML tool. We have some shopping cart understanding around purchases that have happened in the last 21 days. Those calculated attributes where we can actually create new attributes on users based off the data that we've received, and also existing audience membership. So this is a kind of a fully built out version, but if I was to add some additional criteria, I would just hit this drop down and I would look at the different aspects of the data model. And if I wanted to bring in another criteria around users, I would drop this in here and start to look at the audience membership, the attributes, consent, user attributes, and again, like everything that's been collected and sent into mParticle is available for segmentation criteria and can be used to really hone in and build that audience. We also support A/B testing with these, so you can set up to 5 different variations, and that'll allow you to test different variants and test different downstream partners and channels that you choose to send these specific variants to. And so how do you go about doing that? Well, the next step is to connect this output. And right off the bat here, I have all these kind of pre-entered credentials, and these are those pre-built integrations that I've set up. And you can see we can send this audience to a whole different type of endpoints, whether that's a Kinesis Firehose for your engineering and analytics team, email or push notification service like Braze, Facebook, an analytics tool, really anywhere that can ingest an audience, we're going to be able to send this. So I'm going to send this over to Facebook quickly and walk you through this real example. And with every single configuration, there's a lot of different toggles you can switch. So I can control what type of IDs I want to share with Facebook. We have user attribute value, so I can essentially pass on not just the identities that are used for targeting, but also send over particular values that those users hold. So I've just added the connection here. You can see it's going over. And if I go into my Facebook Ads Manager account, right now I don't have any sort of audiences, but if I quickly refresh the page here, sure enough, you're going to see the audience that I just hooked up and created here. And now the audience is hooked up, and it's always going to be running and maintained for you in real time. So as users kind of get added and removed to the audience, not only will it be added or will be maintained in mParticle, but it's also going to be maintained in Facebook and all the different tools that you choose to start sending this audience to. The last part I'll mention here is that it's not just a one-to-one mapping. You can build a single audience and orchestrate it to as many of these different endpoints as you'd like. And that's how you start to really have a central source of data, a central source of your audience strategy, which will then allow you to orchestrate audiences across a whole bunch of different channels, including walled gardens, paid media, email, push notifications, your analytics tools, really anywhere that can take in a user list can be orchestrated with mParticle. So Joey, I'll take a quick pause here and we can open it up for any sort of questions that might get popped up.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Justin. So we did have a few questions come in, but if anyone attending has additional questions that they'd like to ask, feel free just to submit them using that Q&A feature and we'll address them. So Justin, one question we had was, does mParticle connect with data warehouses? Do you want to take that and provide a little bit more information on those connections?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, if I walk over to our directory here and I look at the configuration type, I select data warehouse, you can see here that we have 3 out-of-the-box integrations with Redshift, BigQuery, and Snowflake. And we do provide an ETL, and we provide a schema as part of that. So we'll automatically create tables and provide views and then organize the data in such a way that is very easy to use and ready to go right out of the box.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Justin. One other more privacy-minded question. Does mParticle encrypt data when forwarding between tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we encrypt data both at rest and in transfer. And yeah, that is definitely something that is supported out of the box.
Okay, cool. Thanks. We've just got a couple minutes left, so I'll answer or we'll address one more question. If you do have any additional questions, feel free to share them via email, and we'll be sure to get more information to you. Justin, last one. What happens to a data point when it violates a data plan?
Yeah, so it goes into quarantine, and essentially that will be set up as a feed, which will then let you, do something with that data. So if you want to send it to an S3 bucket, and if you want to, re-cleanse the data through some sort of a Lambda function or a custom rule and modify or cleanse it, you can do that, or you can just let it sit in quarantine. But you really have that control to decide the fate of your data if there are violations. You could choose to continue sending it on if you'd like, but many of our customers are choosing to quarantine the data and then fix the integration before it gets sent to the different downstream tools.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Justin. Well, thanks all for tuning in today. It was a pleasure to have you. We will be following up with the recording of this session, which you'll receive in the next 24 to 48 hours. So look forward to continuing the conversation there. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, everyone.